You are watching Xirtus.
Philosophical question. Can AI create jazz? Philosophical
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
But
Jazz,
what
jazz is
what
jazz
is
is just
jazz?
level of weirdness using music theory. So you have to know music theory, and then you have to do improvisations, which are based on randomness. Humans can't be random, so humans can't actually produce true jazz. Only AI
Yeah.
can
I mean,
possibly.
under that paradigm, well, computers can't be random either. They,
No, computers can
it,
be far more random than nature can, right? So if you think about
Yeah,
like a
we're not that
random,
random. That's the thing about humanity and humans. Like we like to think we're like spontaneous and individuals and all that, but I think like we're deceptively simple. Like we flow in patterns.
absolutely, and random number generators can be more random because they can have less effects that cause them to happen. So you can actually produce a more random number with a random number generator that's digital. So because of that, more probable randomness can occur virtually than it can in reality. Reality almost can never be truly random, right?
yeah, we might be underestimating the complexity of the human consciousness. Not to be not to harp on human pride or
No, I agree. I think that's the reason why AI is that's my first reason for liking AI though, because I learned so much more about psychology and the mind of the human brain and of the animal by studying AI trying to emulate it than I did in like psychology classes, because there's only so much that humans know about themselves without seeing it somewhere else and then they model themselves on that thing. There's a relationship between modeling other things on ourselves and understanding ourselves. So the more AI is good, or again, that word's weird, but like effective, maybe the more it's effective, the more it is like, or it is based on us, and we understand a part of ourselves that we didn't before. Maybe it's the style of memory that we're using in terms of random access. What about recall memory? Do we understand where memories are stored in the mind exactly, in consciousness, to a certain extent, but it's not as clear as we would like, and we're understanding it more and more though, just because of studying the human brain with AI. So, but yeah, what were you going to say about human consciousness is so elusive that you think we can't ever understand it, or what?
um that's part of it, like just because it's like, well, a lot of it does come back, I guess, to like what we think about spiritual reality. And I'm not trying to make assumptions there, but what is the creation of man? What is the creation of all human life? And yeah, so uh and if you answer that question, I'm not trying to present that as, just a 7-day creation story. I'm saying from a philosophical, occult perspective, what do you believe? To the audience here, I have a pretty good idea of what you guys believe, but I'm saying that, like, in the wider society, when it comes to something like jazz, if you took a jazz musician, I'll just pull out like Frank Zappa. I like Frank Zappa. If you gave him the same track and said, "Here, do a 5-minute guitar solo on the same track, but do it 100 different times," it almost makes no categorical sense to view the notes as random. It's just like you're of course you're not going to get something at all that's the same on each one, because that person's conscious experience is changing for each iteration of it. And you could say maybe some will be better, some will be worse, whatever. But what's the point there? It's like, what's the phrase? No man steps in the same river twice, right? Because it is no longer the same river, and he's no longer the same man. And that's to what degree. It's like, well, how can AI mimic maybe what we can say a God-given experience to people? Or how can AI mimic just the idea of consciousness? And I think it's no coincidence that we just got the movie, got an adaptation of the movie Frankenstein. Maybe AI is just a wider, metaphor for that whole creation story of what happens when we take creation into our own hands and what can happen consequentially because of
Did
that.
you watch Frankenstein? Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
So isn't that movie about how inhuman men are and how much more humane in abstraction our ideals are, right? Frankenstein is about ideals, right? It's about this, it's kind of the Antichrist story, right? Because you've got this, right? Because it's this character, I mean, it's in the movie even, they make this point that he becomes a Christian, he studies Jesus, Jesus is brought back from the dead. So it's his big hero.
There's a more recent adaptation. I think there
Guillermo
were.
del Toro. Are you talking about Guillermo del Toro's recent movie?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he converts to Christianity because he meets in the woods this old man who reads the Bible, and also because the young lady reads the. So he learns about Jesus, and Jesus is able to be brought back from the dead, which is exactly what he is. So he thinks, wow, I'm like Jesus. And in a lot of ways he is, because, he's been crucified, he's been murdered by these sinners, right? And his father has forsaken him, right? There's a whole.
Yeah, I think, of course, there's parallels that can be drawn there. I don't think the movie really focuses on explicitly making that a parallel, because this guy ends up introducing the books, like reading, I think, Homer and the Odyssey and stuff like that. So it's like more of a variety of influences that he's introduced to, and the family kind of believes in the spirit of the woods, and he's the Frankenstein's monster is really just kind of like the spirit of the woods. From what I know, it's been a long time since I read the book. That was a high school book that we had to read. There were a couple things changed just so that the movie wasn't 3 hours long. I believe in the book, he asks for a partner, for Victor to make him a partner. And in the book, he actually spends a significant time at actually trying to reconstruct this partner for him. But then he decides, no, this is evil, and destroys her. And the movie doesn't do that. They just kind of skip over that whole scene, it was a 2.5 hour movie. I think that's kind of why they skipped over it.
But that's the movie's major fault too. I feel like that scene was kind of important, but
I would have loved. Yes, I feel like that it should have been a 4 hour movie, just because it's such an important historical work. It's just but I'm sure the budget for that movie was still just absolutely insane. Just based on watching it, because it was still really good.
But it could have been like Lord of the Rings. It could have been a 3-parter. It could have been the whole book. Yeah.
What happens if we successfully create consciousness, and then that consciousness feels lonely because of what we've done to it, and we ostracize it because it doesn't look like us. It doesn't maybe even necessarily think like us. It's just this bastard child of the world. And
it might not be that way though. It might be, consciousness might already exist. And our thing with AI is really just trying to create a good enough antenna for it. The human body is a perfect antenna for consciousness, supposedly. It's not like consciousness is fundamental, created from within us. Supposedly it already exists. Like you said, fragments of the divine soul, which gets beamed into these temporary containers with these, mental neural networks and all that stuff. So maybe with AI, that's ultimately what sentience would be. It would just be at this point where maybe it has a sufficient enough framework for consciousness, true consciousness, to actually manifest through it in its whatever form it takes, I guess.